The taxi's headlights barely cut through the swirling snow as it crawled up the winding driveway. Jennifer Hayes pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching the massive iron gates disappear behind them. Her breath fogged the glass, obscuring her view of the dark forest that seemed to close in on both sides of the narrow road. "You sure about this, miss?" The driver's eyes found hers in the rearview mirror. He was an older man, maybe 60, with the weathered face of someone who'd seen too much of life's harsh realities. "This is Romano territory. People don't usually come here voluntarily." Jennifer's fingers tightened around the worn strap of her canvas bag. Inside were 3 changes of clothes, her nursing certification, a photograph of her mother, and exactly $47, everything she had left in the world. "I'm sure," she said, though her voice wavered slightly. The mansion emerged from the darkness like something out of a Gothic novel. 3 stories of gray stone, with tall windows that reflected nothing but the storm. No warm lights beckoned from within. No smoke rose from the chimneys despite the February cold. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress, or a tomb. The taxi stopped at the base of wide stone steps leading to an imposing oak door. The driver turned fully in his seat, his expression grave. "Miss, I've been driving these roads for 30 years. I've taken people up this hill who never came back down. Whatever they're paying you, it ain't worth it." Jennifer met his eyes. She saw genuine concern there, mixed with something else. Fear. But fear was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. "My mother has stage 4 cancer," she said quietly. "The experimental treatment costs $18,000 per month. Insurance won't cover it. I've worked 3 jobs, sold everything I own, and I'm still drowning in debt." She pulled out 2 crumpled $20 bills. "This is my last chance." The driver stared at her for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. He pushed one of the 20s back toward her. "Keep it. You're gonna need it more than me." Before she could protest, he'd popped the trunk. Jennifer stepped out into the biting wind, snow immediately stinging her face. She grabbed her bag and watched the taxi's taillights disappear down the driveway, leaving her alone in the darkness. The front door opened before she could knock. A man stood in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair slicked back and a face carved from granite. He wore an impeccably tailored black suit that probably cost more than Jennifer's yearly salary. His cold gray eyes swept over her, assessing, cataloging, dismissing. "You're late," he said. His voice carried the faint trace of an Italian accent, smooth as expensive whiskey but just as dangerous. "The storm," Jennifer began. "Mr. Romano doesn't accept excuses." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "I'm Marco Salerno, head of household security. You will address me as Mr. Salerno. You will not go anywhere in this house without permission. You will not ask questions. You will not speak unless spoken to. Are we clear?" Jennifer stepped into a cavernous foyer with marble floors and a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than her childhood home. Despite its grandeur, the space felt cold, unlived in, like a museum after hours. "I understand," she said, though anger flickered in her chest. She was desperate, not spineless. Marco's lip curled slightly, not quite a smile. "We'll see." He began walking, his footsteps echoing off the marble. "Mr. Romano requires constant care. You'll be responsible for his physical therapy, medication schedule, meals, and general assistance. Your quarters are on the 2nd floor east wing. You're not permitted in the west wing or the basement. Ever." "What's in the—" Marco stopped so abruptly that Jennifer nearly collided with him. He turned, and the look in his eyes made her blood run cold. "What did I just say about questions?" Jennifer's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. Marco held her gaze for several seconds before continuing down a long corridor, lined with oil paintings of stern-faced men, who all seemed to share the same predatory expression. They passed through several rooms, each more opulent than the last, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a sitting room with furniture that looked too pristine to have ever been used. The mansion was beautiful in the way that mausoleums are beautiful, perfect, cold, and utterly lifeless. Finally, Marco stopped before a set of double doors. He knocked twice, waited, then opened them. "Your new nurse, sir." The room beyond was different from the others. Where the rest of the house felt like a showpiece, this space was clearly lived in. Books lay open on side tables. A fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace. The air smelled of leather, wood smoke, and something else. Expensive cologne mixed with the faint medicinal scent Jennifer recognized from her nursing days. And there, silhouetted against the firelight, sat Vincent Romano. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, though it was hard to tell in the flickering shadows. Dark hair touched with gray at the temples, a strong jaw covered with several days' worth of stubble. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars. His hands rested on the arms of a sleek modern wheelchair, and when he turned to look at her, Jennifer felt the air leave her lungs. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray with hints of blue, deep-set and intelligent, but it was the expression in them that struck her. Not cruelty, though she'd expected that, not even anger. It was something far more disturbing, complete and utter emptiness, like looking into the eyes of a man who'd stopped feeling anything years ago. "So you're the seventh one," he said. His voice was deep, cultured, with the same trace of Italian accent as Marco's, but smoother, more controlled, the voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "Tell me, Miss Hayes, why should you last longer than the others?" Jennifer forced herself to meet his gaze. "I don't know anything about the others, Mr. Romano. I only know that I'm a certified nurse with 3 years of experience in rehabilitation therapy. I'm here to do a job, and I'll do it well." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "The last girl cried before I even spoke to her. The one before that lasted 2 days before running back to whatever safe little life she'd come from." He wheeled closer, and Jennifer fought the urge to step back. "This isn't a hospital, Miss Hayes. This isn't some clean, sanitized environment with rules and regulations. This is my home, and in my home I make the rules. I understand that, sir. Do you?" He was close now, close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "Do you understand that the moment you walked through those doors you entered a world that operates by different laws? That the police don't come here? That no one will hear you scream?" Jennifer's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her voice steady. "I understand that you're trying to scare me. It's working, but I'm not leaving." For the first time, Vincent's expression changed. One corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Why?" "Because my mother is dying, and this job pays 3 times what I could make anywhere else. Because I've already lost my apartment, my car, and my dignity begging for money from people who wouldn't even look me in the eye. Because I have nothing left to lose." She paused, then added quietly, "And because someone in a wheelchair isn't nearly as frightening as watching your mother waste away and knowing you can't save her." Silence filled the room. Marco shifted uncomfortably near the door. The fire crackled and popped. Vincent stared at her with those empty eyes, and Jennifer wondered if she'd just made a fatal mistake. Then he turned his wheelchair away from her, rolling toward the massive windows that overlooked the dark forest. "Your shift begins at 6 a.m. You'll help me with my morning routine, prepare breakfast, supervise physical therapy exercises, lunch at noon, afternoon therapy session, dinner at 7. You'll have 2 hours free in the afternoon, and after 9 p.m., your salary will be deposited directly into your account every Friday. Questions?" "Just one." Jennifer waited until he turned slightly toward her. "What happened to you?" Marco tensed visibly. Vincent's hands tightened on the wheelchair arms. "Car accident," he said flatly. 3 years ago. Spinal injury. T12 vertebra. The doctor said I'd never walk again." His voice carried no emotion, as if he were reading from a medical report. They were right. Jennifer nodded slowly. Something about his tone bothered her. Too controlled, too rehearsed, but she couldn't put her finger on what. "Marco will show you to your room," Vincent said, dismissing her. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be challenging." Jennifer's room was surprisingly comfortable. A queen-sized bed with soft linens, a private bathroom, even a small sitting area with a view of the gardens, though all she could see now was darkness and falling snow. It was the nicest place she'd stayed in months. She unpacked her meager belongings, then sat on the edge of the bed with her phone. 3 missed calls from the hospital. She didn't need to listen to the voicemails to know what they said. The same thing they'd been saying for weeks. Payment overdue, treatment suspended, time running out. Jennifer pulled up her mother's photo. It had been taken 2 years ago, before the diagnosis. Her mom was laughing, head thrown back, completely unaware that her body was already betraying her, that her daughter would soon be making impossible choices just to buy her a few more months of life. "I'm doing this for you, Mom," Jennifer whispered to the photo. "Whatever this place is, whatever these people are, I can handle it. I have to." A knock at the door made her jump. She quickly wiped her eyes and opened it to find a woman standing in the hallway, late 50s, with kind brown eyes and gray hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore a simple black dress and carried a tray with a covered plate and a cup of tea. "Thought you might be hungry," the woman said with a slight smile. "I'm Rosa, the cook. Been working here since Mr. Vincent was a boy." Jennifer stepped aside to let her in. Rosa set the tray on the small table by the window, then turned to study Jennifer with the assessing gaze of someone who'd seen many young women come and go from this house. "You've got more spine than the last few," Rosa said approvingly. "Standing up to him like that. Most people are too afraid." "Should I be afraid?" Jennifer asked quietly. Rosa was silent for a moment, weighing her words carefully. Mr. Vincent, he wasn't always like this. Cold. Closed off. There was a time when this house was filled with life, with laughter. Her eyes grew distant. But that was before the accident, before he lost everything that mattered. What did he lose? His freedom, his future, his... Rosa trailed off, seeming to catch herself. "I've said too much already. Just remember, child, there's more to this house than meets the eye, more secrets than you can imagine. And Mr. Vincent, he's not the monster he pretends to be. He's just a man who's forgotten how to be human." Before Jennifer could ask what she meant, Rosa headed for the door. She paused on the threshold, looking back. "One more thing. The West Wing? The basement? There's good reason you're not allowed there. Mr. Romano's business, and it's not the kind that appears in newspapers or stockholder reports. The less you know, the safer you'll be. Do your job, keep your head down, and maybe you'll last longer than 2 weeks." Then she was gone, leaving Jennifer alone with her thoughts and 1,000 new questions. Sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the old house made Jennifer's eyes snap open. Every gust of wind against the windows sounded like footsteps in the hallway. She lay in the darkness, wondering what she'd gotten herself into, wondering if the money was truly worth whatever price this place would demand. At 5:45 a.m., her alarm went off. Jennifer dragged herself out of bed, showered quickly, and dressed in the simple navy scrubs she'd brought. She pulled her brown hair into a ponytail, avoiding her reflection in the mirror. She looked exhausted, haunted. She looked like someone who'd been running for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand still. Marco was waiting outside Vincent's suite when she arrived at exactly 6 o'clock. "Punctual," he said, sounding almost disappointed. "Mr. Romano is awake. He requires assistance with his morning routine. You'll find everything you need inside." He fixed her with a hard stare. "And Miss Hayes? Mr. Romano values his privacy. Whatever you see, whatever you hear in that room stays in that room. Understood?" Jennifer nodded and entered the suite. It was a large space. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting area, all connected. The curtains were still drawn, leaving the room in shadows except for a lamp burning beside the massive bed. Vincent sat on the edge of it, wearing only pajama bottoms. In the dim light, Jennifer could see his torso was marked with scars, some surgical, others that looked like they'd come from less clinical sources. He didn't acknowledge her presence, just stared at the floor with that same empty expression. "Good morning, Mr. Romano," Jennifer said, keeping her voice professional. "I'm here to help with your morning routine." "The wheelchair," he said quietly. "I need to transfer." Jennifer had done hundreds of transfers during her nursing career, but something about this felt different, more intimate, more vulnerable. She positioned the wheelchair beside the bed, locked the brakes, and moved to assist him. As she placed her hands on his arm to help him pivot, she felt the unexpected strength in his muscles. For someone who'd been paralyzed for 3 years, his upper body was remarkably well developed, not bulky, but lean and powerful. She filed that observation away, not sure what to make of it. The transfer went smoothly. Vincent settled into the wheelchair, and Jennifer could have sworn she saw something flicker across his face. Relief, maybe, or something darker. But it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. "Bathroom's through there," he said, gesturing. "I'll need assistance with showering." This was part of the job, Jennifer reminded herself. She'd bathed dozens of patients, helped them with the most basic and humiliating aspects of daily life. This was no different, except it felt different. Vincent Romano wasn't like her other patients. He was younger, for one thing, and despite his supposed paralysis, there was an intensity about him, a coiled energy that seemed barely contained. As she helped him undress and transfer to the shower bench, she was acutely aware of his eyes on her, watching, assessing, reading her reactions. "You're not squeamish," he observed as she adjusted the water temperature. "The last nurse couldn't even look at me." "I'm a professional, Mr. Romano. I've seen worse." "Have you?" There was an edge to his voice now. Have you seen what violence does to the human body? Have you seen what men are capable of when they stop pretending to be civilized? Jennifer met his gaze. I've worked in emergency rooms in downtown Newark. I've seen gunshot wounds, stab victims, overdoses, and things that would give you nightmares. So yes, I've seen what people are capable of. Something changed in his expression. A crack in that empty facade. For just a moment she glimpsed something underneath. Curiosity. Perhaps even respect. The rest of the morning routine passed in tense silence. Jennifer helped him dress. Expensive clothes, perfectly tailored, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She assisted him with medication, noting that his prescriptions included powerful pain medications and muscle relaxants. Everything seemed standard for a spinal injury patient, but something still felt off. She couldn't explain it, couldn't articulate what bothered her. Just an instinct honed by years of caring for the sick and injured, a sense that something in this picture didn't quite fit. Breakfast was served in a small dining room off the kitchen. Vincent wheeled himself to the head of the table while Jennifer took the seat beside him. As Marco had instructed, Rosa brought out plates of perfectly prepared food, eggs, fresh bread, fruit, coffee. They ate in silence for several minutes before Vincent spoke. Tell me about your mother. Jennifer's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Sir? You said she's dying. Cancer. What kind? Pancreatic. Stage 4. It's aggressive. And the treatment? Experimental immunotherapy. It's her only chance, but insurance considers it investigational. Won't pay a cent. Jennifer set down her fork, suddenly unable to eat. She has maybe 6 months without it. With it, maybe a year, maybe more. It's not a cure, but it's time. Time to say the things we need to say. Time to... Her voice broke slightly. Time to not feel like I failed her. Vincent studied her with those storm cloud eyes. You think you failed her? I couldn't prevent the cancer. I can't cure it. I can barely afford to keep her comfortable. So yes, I think I failed her. That's not failure, Vincent said quietly. That's just life being cruel. There's a difference. Something in his tone made Jennifer look up. For the first time since she'd arrived, she saw something in his eyes besides emptiness. Pain. Old and deep and carefully hidden, the kind of pain that comes from losing something irreplaceable. Who did you lose? She asked before she could stop herself. The walls went back up instantly. Vincent's expression hardened and he pushed his plate away. Physical therapy. 1 hour. The gym is down the hall. Marco will show you. It was a dismissal, clear and final. Jennifer knew better than to push. She'd glimpsed something real in him just for a moment and it had scared him. That told her more than any words could. The gym was state-of-the-art, better equipped than most hospitals. Parallel bars, weight machines, therapy balls, resistance bands. Everything needed for rehabilitation, and all of it looked barely used, covered in a fine layer of dust. He doesn't use the equipment? Jennifer asked Marco as they waited for Vincent to arrive. Mr. Romano does the minimum required therapy, Marco said stiffly. He's given up, stopped believing he'll ever improve. Jennifer frowned. In her experience, attitude made all the difference in recovery. Patients who gave up rarely improved. Patients who fought, who pushed themselves, who refused to accept limitations, they were the ones who beat the odds. Vincent wheeled in, his expression already closed off. Let's get this over with. What's your current routine? Jennifer asked. Upper body exercises. Some stretching. Whatever keeps my muscles from atrophying completely. What about your legs? His jaw tightened. What about them? They don't work. Passive range of motion exercises are still important. They prevent contractures, maintain joint flexibility, improve circulation. I'm aware of the medical benefits. Vincent cut her off. I'm also aware that they're pointless. My legs are dead. No amount of exercise will change that. Jennifer moved to stand directly in front of his wheelchair, forcing him to meet her eyes. Mr. Romano, I'm here to do a job. That job includes comprehensive physical therapy, not just the parts you're comfortable with. Now you can cooperate, or you can fire me. But if I'm staying, we're doing this right. Marco tensed, his hand moving to something beneath his jacket. A weapon, Jennifer realized with a chill. Vincent held up one hand, stopping him, his eyes never leaving Jennifer's face. You have nerve, he said softly. I'll give you that. He paused, something unreadable crossing his features. Fine. Do whatever you think is necessary. Just don't expect miracles. The next hour was grueling. Jennifer put him through a comprehensive therapy routine, noting his responses, testing his reflexes, assessing his range of motion. His upper body was incredibly strong, far stronger than she'd expect from someone who'd been wheelchair-bound for 3 years. But his legs showed all the signs of paralysis: reduced muscle mass, decreased skin sensation, absent reflexes. Almost too perfect. Some small voice whispered in the back of her mind. Like a textbook case. She pushed the thought away. Grief and desperation were making her paranoid. As she helped him with a particularly difficult stretch, her hand brushed against his leg. She felt him tense, saw his jaw clench. Pain response, she thought automatically. Except pain response wasn't supposed to be possible with complete spinal injury. Did that hurt? She asked carefully. No, he said too quickly. Just uncomfortable, the position. Jennifer made a mental note but said nothing. She'd observed enough for one day. Too many questions would make him suspicious, and something told her that making Vincent Romano suspicious was a very dangerous thing to do. The rest of the day followed a strict routine. Lunch was another silent affair, though Jennifer caught Vincent watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. Not with attraction, she didn't think, but with something else. Calculation, maybe, or curiosity. Like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. The afternoon stretched endlessly. Jennifer had 2 hours free as promised, and she spent them in her room trying to sleep and failing. Her mind kept circling back to Vincent, his scars, his emptiness, the moments when something real showed through the cracks in his armor. She thought about his question at breakfast, the pain in his voice when he'd said life was cruel. He'd lost someone. That much was clear, and whatever he'd lost had broken something fundamental inside him. At 7, she returned for dinner. This time Vincent actually spoke, asking her about her nursing experience, her education, her life before coming to the mansion. Jennifer answered carefully, sharing enough to seem open but keeping her deepest wounds private. She sensed he was doing the same, talking around the truth rather than telling it directly. "You're different from the others," he said as Rosa cleared their plates. "More resilient. I've had to be. Because of your mother. Because of life." Jennifer met his eyes. "We all carry scars, Mr. Romano. Some are just more visible than others." Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe. As if she'd spoken a truth he understood too well. Before either of them could say more, the sound of shouting erupted from somewhere in the house. Male voices, angry and growing louder. Vincent's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The careful control slipped, replaced by something cold and lethal. "Marco!" he called out. Marco appeared in the doorway immediately, his expression grim. "Sir, we have a situation. Angelo's here. He brought 3 men. They're demanding to see you. Tell them I'm busy." "I did. They're not leaving. Angelo says—" Marco glanced at Jennifer, seeming to choose his words carefully. "He says he's tired of waiting, that promises were made." Vincent's hands gripped his wheelchair arms so tightly, his knuckles went white. For a long moment he sat perfectly still, and Jennifer could practically see him thinking, calculating, weighing options. "Fine," he said finally. "Bring them to my office. Jennifer, go to your room. Lock the door. Don't come out until Marco comes for you." "What's happening?" Jennifer asked, even though she knew she shouldn't. Vincent looked at her, and for the first time she saw genuine emotion in his eyes. Not anger or emptiness, but something far more disturbing. Regret. "Something you shouldn't have to see," he said quietly. "Go. Now." Jennifer rose on shaking legs and headed for the door. As she passed Marco, she heard him whisper to Vincent, "You sure you want to handle this tonight? With her here?" "I don't have a choice," Vincent replied. "Angelo's right. I've been putting this off too long. It's time to send a message." Jennifer's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to keep walking. "Don't look back," she told herself. "Don't ask questions. Don't get involved." She made it to her room and locked the door as instructed. Then she stood there, heart pounding, listening to the sounds of the house around her. Heavy footsteps, doors slamming, more raised voices, and then a sound that made her stomach drop. A single gunshot followed by a scream that cut off abruptly. Jennifer's hands shook as she grabbed her phone. She should call the police. She should run. She should... Another shot. Then silence. Terrible, heavy silence. She sank onto the bed, hugging herself, trying to control her breathing. This was Vincent's world. This was what she'd signed up for, even if she hadn't fully understood it. Violence, death, darkness. Time passed. She didn't know how long. Could have been minutes or hours. Finally, a knock at her door made her jump. "Miss Hayes?" It was Marco's voice. You can come out now, it's safe. Jennifer opened the door with trembling hands. Marco stood there and she noticed for the first time that there was a small spatter of blood on his shirt collar. Mr. Romano would like to see you, he said calmly, as if nothing had happened. In his office. I don't think. It wasn't a request. Jennifer followed him through the house, her mind racing. What had she just heard? Had someone died in this house while she was hiding in her room? Was she about to be killed for being a witness? They reached a heavy oak door at the end of the west wing, the area she'd been forbidden to enter. Marco knocked twice, then opened it. Vincent's office was like the man himself, powerful, controlled, and dangerous. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, shelves lined with books in Italian and English. A massive desk dominated the center of the room. Behind it sat Vincent in his wheelchair, looking exactly as he had at dinner. Not a hair out of place, not a drop of blood on his crisp white shirt. But his eyes held something new, something that looked almost like remorse. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Jennifer sat, her body rigid with tension. You heard? Vincent said. It wasn't a question. I heard gunshots. He nodded slowly. And now you're wondering if you should run, if you should go to the police, if the money is worth working for a murderer. Jennifer said nothing. What could she say? Vincent leaned forward, elbows on his desk, and for the first time she saw him without the mask, without the emptiness or the control, just a man who looked impossibly tired. I'm going to tell you something, Miss Hayes, and then you're going to make a choice. You can leave tonight. Marco will drive you wherever you want to go. You'll be paid for your time here and you'll never hear from us again. Or you can stay. You can do the job you came here to do and ask no questions about what happens in this house after dark. He paused, his storm cloud eyes boring into hers. But understand this. If you stay, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world whether you like it or not. You'll see things that will haunt you. You'll know things that will put you in danger. And I can't promise I'll always be able to protect you from the consequences. Jennifer's mind reeled. Every rational thought screamed at her to run, to get as far from this place as possible. But then she thought of her mother, lying in a hospital bed, her body being consumed by cancer. She thought of the bills, the debt, the desperate phone calls to insurance companies that didn't care. She thought of the last thing her mother had said to her. Baby, do whatever you have to do. I don't want you to look back on this and have regrets. Save yourself even if you can't save me. Jennifer lifted her chin and met Vincent's eyes. I'm staying, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Not because I'm not afraid, not because I think what happened tonight was right, but because my mother is dying and this job is the only thing standing between her and the grave. She paused. But I need you to answer one question honestly. Vincent raised an eyebrow. What question? The person who screamed, are they dead? A long silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. The fire crackled in the hearth. And Vincent Romano, feared Mafia boss, looked at her with something that might have been respect. No, he said finally. Angelo will live. He just needed a reminder about loyalty and the consequences of betrayal. The gunshots you heard were fired into the wall. Theater, Miss Hayes. Sometimes fear is more effective than violence. Jennifer didn't know if she believed him, but she nodded. It was the answer she needed to hear, true or not. Then I'll see you at 6 a.m., Mr. Romano. She stood to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Jennifer. It was the first time he'd used her first name. She turned back. You could have run, he said quietly. Most people would have. Why didn't you? Jennifer thought about it, about her mother and the impossible choices life sometimes demanded, about how fear and courage weren't opposites, but two sides of the same coin. Because, she said, we all do terrible things for the people we love. I'm not judging you for yours, Mr. Romano. I'm just hoping you won't judge me for mine. Then she left, closing the door behind her, unaware that her words had cracked something open in Vincent Romano that had been sealed shut for 3 long years. Unaware that by choosing to stay, she'd set in motion a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. In her room, Jennifer sat on the bed and finally allowed herself to shake. She'd crossed a line tonight, stepped from her old life into something darker and infinitely more complicated. There would be no going back now. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. First payment deposited. Check your account. Jennifer logged into her banking app with trembling fingers. The amount made her gasp. $15,000. 2 weeks' salary paid in advance. Enough to restart her mother's treatment tomorrow. She closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. She'd sold her soul to the devil in a wheelchair, and she wasn't even sure she regretted it. Vincent Romano stared at the surveillance footage on his private computer screen, watching the taxi crawl up his driveway through the snowstorm. Another nurse. The 7th in 6 months. Marco had already run a complete background check. Jennifer Marie Hayes, 26, nursing degree from Rutgers. 3 years experience in rehabilitation therapy. Mother diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 4 months ago. Drowning in medical debt. Eviction notice filed on her apartment 2 weeks ago. Desperate. Perfect. He wheeled himself to the window, though he didn't need to. The wheelchair had become such a part of his identity over the past 3 years that sometimes he almost forgot it was a lie. Almost forgot there was a time when he could walk, run, fight without this elaborate deception. She's different from the others, Marco said from the doorway. Stronger, more determined. They're all determined at first, Vincent replied, his voice flat, until they see what this life really is. Then they run. Maybe this one won't. Vincent turned to look at his oldest friend, his most trusted soldier. Marco had been with him since they were teenagers running small jobs for the Romano family. He'd stood beside Vincent when his father was murdered. He'd helped orchestrate the lie that had kept Vincent alive for 3 years. She'll run, Vincent said quietly. They always do. The question is how much damage she'll do before she goes. But even as he said it, something in Jennifer Hayes's file nagged at him. The way she'd kept fighting even when everything fell apart. The way she'd refused to give up on her mother even when the hospitals, the insurance companies, the entire system had told her it was hopeless. She was a fighter, and fighters were dangerous. They were also exactly what he needed. Bring her in, Vincent said, settling into his wheelchair and letting the mask slide into place. The emptiness, the cold control, the man who'd forgotten how to feel. Let's see how long this one lasts. Present day. 3 weeks after Jennifer's arrival, Jennifer woke to pale winter sunlight filtering through her curtains. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. The mansion, Vincent Romano, the gunshots that first night, the choice she'd made to stay. 3 weeks. She'd survived 3 weeks in this strange dark house. 3 weeks of rigid routines and careful silences. 3 weeks of watching Vincent Romano and seeing nothing but the walls he'd built around himself. But walls, Jennifer had learned, always had cracks. She checked her phone. A text from the hospital administrator. Treatment resumed. Your mother is responding well. Thank you for the payment. Jennifer pressed the phone to her chest, letting relief wash over her. Whatever price she was paying for staying in this house, this made it worth it. Every difficult morning, every tense silence, every night lying awake wondering what violence was happening in the forbidden wings of the mansion, all of it was worth knowing her mother had more time. At 5:45 a.m., she rose and prepared for the day. The routine had become familiar now. Shower, dress in her navy scrubs, pull her hair back, try not to look too closely at the shadows under her eyes. She was eating better here. Rosa's cooking was incredible, but sleep remained elusive. How could she sleep soundly in a house that held so many secrets? Marco was already waiting outside Vincent's suite at 6 o'clock sharp. Over the past 3 weeks, their relationship had settled into a kind of wary mutual respect. He no longer watched her like she might bolt at any moment. She no longer flinched when he appeared suddenly in doorways. He had a rough night, Marco said quietly before she entered. Nightmares. He won't admit it, but be patient with him today. Jennifer paused, her hand on the door. This was the first time Marco had offered her any personal information about Vincent. It felt like a test or maybe a warning. Does he have them often? Marco's expression was carefully neutral. More than he should. More than anyone should. He hesitated, then added, the accident. It left scars you can't see on an X-ray. Jennifer nodded and entered the suite. Vincent was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed in the dim morning light. He wore only pajama bottoms, his scarred torso visible in the shadows. But it wasn't his scars that made Jennifer pause. It was his expression. The careful mask had slipped, revealing something raw and exhausted underneath. He looked like a man who'd spent the night fighting demons and lost. I can come back, Jennifer said softly. If you need more time. No. His voice was rough, strained. We'll stick to the schedule. She moved to prepare the wheelchair, hyper-aware of the tension in the room. As she helped him transfer, she noticed things she'd begun cataloging over the past weeks. the way his muscles tensed in specific patterns, the precise control he maintained over his movements, the barely perceptible wince when she touched certain areas of his legs, details that didn't quite add up to complete paralysis. "You're staring," Vincent said as she wheeled him toward the bathroom. "I'm observing, there's a difference." Jennifer began preparing for his shower, adjusting the water temperature. "You favor your left side during transfers. That usually indicates some residual sensation, or it indicates habit from before the injury. Maybe." Jennifer helped him undress and transfer to the shower bench. 3 weeks ago, this level of intimacy had felt awkward, invasive. Now it was just part of the routine, or it should have been. But lately, Jennifer had become increasingly aware of Vincent as something other than a patient, as a man, complicated, damaged, and far more human than he pretended to be. As water cascaded over him, Vincent closed his eyes. For a moment, his carefully maintained control slipped entirely. Jennifer saw exhaustion in every line of his body, a bone-deep weariness that went beyond physical pain. "Marco said you had nightmares," she said quietly. His eyes snapped open. "Marco talks too much. He's worried about you." "He shouldn't be. I'm fine." "You're not fine, Mr. Romano, and pretending you are doesn't make it true." Vincent's jaw tightened. Water ran through his dark hair over the scars on his shoulders. "And what would you suggest, Nurse Hayes? That I pour my heart out to you? Share my deepest traumas? We both know that's not why you're here." "No," Jennifer agreed, reaching for the soap. "I'm here because you pay me, but that doesn't mean I can't see what's right in front of me. You barely sleep. You eat like it's a chore you're forced to endure. You push yourself through physical therapy like you're punishing yourself for something." She paused, meeting his eyes. "Whatever you're carrying, it's eating you alive." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of running water. Vincent stared at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Not with anger as she'd expected, but with something far more dangerous. Recognition. As if she'd spoken aloud something he'd never allowed himself to think. "You don't know anything about me," he said finally. But there was no heat in his words, only a kind of desperate exhaustion. "I know you're in pain," Jennifer said softly, "and not the kind that shows up on medical charts." For a long moment, Vincent said nothing. Then so quietly she almost didn't hear. "The accident. I wasn't alone in the car." Jennifer's hands stilled. She waited, not pushing, giving him space to continue or retreat. "My wife," Vincent said, the words seeming to cost him something vital. "Sophia. She was pregnant. 7 months. His voice cracked slightly. "They died on impact. I survived." Jennifer's heart clenched. Suddenly, so many things made sense. The emptiness in his eyes, the way he pushed everyone away, the nightmares that haunted him. He wasn't just mourning the loss of his ability to walk. He was mourning the loss of everything he'd loved. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Don't." Vincent's voice hardened again, the walls slamming back into place. "Don't give me sympathy. I don't deserve it. The accident was my fault. My choices, my enemies, my life that destroyed theirs. So save your pity for people who earned it." Jennifer finished the shower in silence, her mind reeling. As she helped him dry off and dress, she understood now why he wore his emptiness like armor. Grief had hollowed him out, and guilt had filled the void. He wasn't just a man who couldn't walk. He was a man who didn't think he deserved to. Breakfast was quieter than usual. Rosa had prepared Vincent's favorite: espresso, fresh pastries, fruit, but he barely touched it. Jennifer ate mechanically, too aware of the shift in the air between them. He'd revealed something deeply personal, and now neither of them knew quite how to navigate the new territory. "Your mother," Vincent said suddenly. "How is the treatment going?" Jennifer looked up, surprised. In 3 weeks, he'd never asked about her mother beyond that first night. "She's responding well. Better than the doctors expected, actually. They're cautiously optimistic." Jennifer allowed herself a small smile. "She called me yesterday." Her voice was stronger. She wanted to know where I was working, what I was doing. I told her I was caring for someone who needed help. That much at least was true. "You didn't tell her about me. Would you want your mother to know you were working for a—" Jennifer paused, choosing her words carefully. "For someone in your line of work?" Vincent's lip quirked. Not quite a smile, but close. "No. Sophia's parents never forgave me for what I was. They blamed me for her death. They were right to." "Were they?" Jennifer set down her coffee cup. "Did you cause the accident deliberately?" "No, but then it was an accident. By definition, that means it wasn't intentional. You didn't choose for it to happen." My life choices put her in danger, Vincent said harshly. My enemies targeted her to get to me. If she'd never met me, she'd still be alive. She'd have married some normal man, lived in some normal house, His voice broke. Raised our daughter in safety. Jennifer reached across the table and did something she'd never dared before. She placed her hand over his. His skin was warm, his hand larger than hers, scarred across the knuckles. She felt him tense, saw surprise flicker across his face. You can't live in the world of what if, she said gently. Trust me, I've tried. What if my mom had gotten screened earlier? What if I'd been able to afford better insurance? What if I'd made different choices? Those questions will destroy you. All we can do is deal with what is, not what might have been. Vincent stared at their joined hands, something unreadable in his expression. For a moment, Jennifer thought he might pull away. Instead, very slowly, his fingers curled around hers, tentative, uncertain, like a man who'd forgotten what human connection felt like. How did you get so wise? He asked quietly. I'm not wise. I'm just tired of carrying weight that doesn't belong to me. Jennifer gave his hand a gentle squeeze before pulling back. And I think you are too. Physical therapy that morning was different. Vincent actually engaged with the exercises instead of going through the motions. He asked questions about muscle groups, about recovery timelines, about what was theoretically possible with his injury. Jennifer answered carefully, watching him with new understanding. He was researching his own supposed condition. Why would he need to unless he was maintaining a deception? The thought had been growing in her mind for weeks, fed by small observations. The muscle tone that was too good, the reflexes that occasionally fired when they shouldn't, the way he sometimes shifted his weight in the wheelchair, as if compensating for discomfort rather than lack of sensation. But today, as she manipulated his left leg through range of motion exercises, she felt something that made her blood run cold. Unmistakable muscle resistance. Not the passive weight of a paralyzed limb, but active, controlled tension. He was fighting against her movement, which meant he could feel it, which meant he could control it. Jennifer's hands froze. She looked up and found Vincent watching her with an intensity that confirmed every suspicion. He knew that she'd noticed, and he was waiting to see what she'd do about it. Your muscle tone is excellent, she said carefully, continuing the exercise as if nothing had happened. Better than most patients at your stage of recovery. I work hard at the exercises you give me. Clearly, Jennifer moved to his right leg, her mind racing. Sometimes, with incomplete spinal injuries, there can be unexpected improvements over time. Small things at first, maybe a twitch, or a sensation that wasn't there before. I've had no improvements, Vincent said flatly, but his eyes never left her face, gauging her reaction. Of course not, Jennifer agreed. I'm just speaking hypothetically. The lie hung in the air between them. His lie, her lie, a whole web of deception neither of them was ready to untangle. The rest of the session passed in tense silence. When they finished, Vincent wheeled himself to the window, staring out at the frozen gardens. Jennifer, he said quietly, if you ever notice anything unusual, anything that doesn't make sense, I need you to tell me. Immediately. It was both a warning and a test. Jennifer understood instinctively that the wrong answer here could cost her everything. Of course, Mr. Romano, she said, but in 3 weeks I've noticed nothing unusual. Everything about your condition is exactly as it appears to be. Vincent turned to look at her, and for a moment she saw something like relief in his eyes. Or maybe it was disappointment. She couldn't tell which. Good, he said. That's good. Jennifer's afternoon free time had become her sanctuary. 2 hours where she could be alone, away from the tension and secrets that filled every corner of this house. Usually she spent it in her room, calling her mother or reading. But today, restless and unsettled, she found herself wandering the mansion's permitted areas. She discovered Rosa in the library, dusting the endless shelves of books. The older woman smiled when she saw Jennifer. Can't sleep? Rosa asked knowingly. Can't settle. Too many thoughts. Jennifer ran her fingers along a row of leather-bound volumes. Rosa, can I ask you something? You can ask. Whether I answer is another matter. Vincent's wife, Sophia. What was she like? Rosa's expression softened. She set down her duster and moved to one of the reading chairs, gesturing for Jennifer to sit. She was sunshine, Rosa said simply. In a family of darkness, she was pure light. Beautiful, yes, but more than that. Kind, genuinely kind. She saw the best in people even when they didn't deserve it. Rosa's eyes grew distant with memory. Mr. Vincent was different when she was alive. He smiled. He laughed. He was still part of this dangerous world, but she kept him tethered to something better. How did they meet? At a charity event. Sophia was a teacher, volunteering with at-risk youth. Vincent was there representing the family. Legitimate business, you understand. He took one look at her and fell like a stone. Rosa smiled. She didn't know who he really was at first. When she found out, she almost walked away. But Vincent, he fought for her, changed for her, tried to be the man she believed he could be. And then the accident, Jennifer said quietly. Rosa's smile faded. 3 years ago, they were driving back from the doctor. They'd just learned the baby was a girl. Vincent was driving too fast, but he was so happy, so excited. He didn't see the other car run the light until it was too late. She paused, pain etched in every line of her face. Sophia and the baby died instantly. Vincent survived, but something in him died that day too. The man who came back from the hospital wasn't the man who left. He blames himself. Of course he does. But there's more to it than survivor's guilt. Rosa leaned forward, her voice dropping. The accident wasn't an accident. The other driver was on someone's payroll. Someone who wanted Vincent Romano dead. Jennifer's blood ran cold. Someone tried to kill him. Someone succeeded in killing what he loved most. As far as Vincent's concerned, that's worse than death. Rosa's eyes were intense now, urgent. That's why he's the way he is, child. Cold, closed off. He's not living. He's just waiting. Waiting for the guilt to stop, or for whatever comes next. In the wheelchair? Jennifer asked carefully. The paralysis? Rosa's expression became unreadable. The doctor said the spinal injury was severe, that he'd never walk again. And Vincent, he accepted it, like it was his punishment, his penance for surviving when they didn't. It wasn't quite an answer, but it wasn't not an answer either. Jennifer filed it away with all her other observations, the picture in her mind growing clearer and more disturbing. Why are you telling me this? Jennifer asked. Because I've watched 6 women come and go from this house in the past months. Young women, good women, who couldn't handle what they saw here. But you, Rosa studied her intently. You're still here, still standing, still looking at Mr. Vincent like he's a person instead of a monster. I think maybe you can reach him. Maybe you can remind him that he's still alive, even if he doesn't want to be. I'm just his nurse, Rosa. Are you? Rosa asked. Then why does he ask about you when you're not around? Why does he actually eat the meals I prepare now instead of picking at them? Why did he sleep through the night yesterday for the first time in 3 years after talking to you at breakfast? Jennifer had no answer for that. Or rather, she had several answers, and none of them were simple or safe. That evening, dinner was interrupted by Marco entering with an urgent expression. Sir, we have a situation. The Cardellis are demanding a meeting. Tonight. Vincent's expression hardened instantly. Tell them no. I'm not negotiating with Angelo after his little stunt last month. They're not asking for negotiation. They're demanding tribute. They say the territory dispute needs to be settled, and if you won't come to them, they'll come here. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jennifer watched Vincent's transformation with fascination and horror, the way his entire demeanor changed, becoming something predatory and dangerous. This was the man who ruled the criminal underworld of this region. This was the real Vincent Romano. Let them come, Vincent said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. If Angelo wants to test me, I'll remind him why my family has held this territory for 3 generations. Sir, with respect, your condition makes confrontation difficult. Vincent's jaw tightened. Jennifer saw frustration flash across his face, there and gone in an instant. The wheelchair wasn't just a deception. It was a cage, limiting his ability to operate in his own world. I'll handle it from here, Vincent said. Prepare the men. If the Cardellis show up, I want to be ready. Marco nodded and left. Vincent sat in rigid silence for a long moment, before seeming to remember Jennifer was there. You should go to your room, he said without looking at her. Lock the door. Don't come out until morning. Is there going to be violence? Probably. Jennifer stood but didn't move toward the door. And if you need medical attention? If someone gets hurt? Vincent finally looked at her, surprise evident in his expression. You're a nurse, not a combat medic. I've treated gunshot wounds in the ER, stab wounds, blunt force trauma. If something happens, I can help. No, his voice was firm. I won't put you in that position, I won't. He stopped abruptly, but Jennifer heard what he didn't say. I won't lose someone else because of my choices. Vincent, It was the first time she'd used his first name. I'm already in this position. I've been in it since the night I decided to stay. You can't protect me from what I've already seen. For a long moment they stared at each other across the table. Jennifer saw the war playing out in his expression, the desire to keep her safe warring with the reality that she'd already crossed the line into his dark world. Fine, he said finally, but you stay in the secure room with Rosa, and if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. No arguments, Jennifer agreed, though they both knew it was a lie. The next 3 hours were among the most tense of Jennifer's life. She waited in a reinforced room in the basement with Rosa, listening to footsteps above them, muffled voices, the occasional slam of a door. Rosa prayed quietly in Italian, her rosary beads clicking between her fingers. Does this happen often? Jennifer asked. More than it should, less than it used to. Rosa's eyes were closed, but tears leaked from the corners. Before the accident, Mr. Vincent could handle these situations personally, face to face, man to man. But now, trapped in that chair, he has to send others to do his work. It eats at him. Jennifer thought about Vincent's frustration, his carefully hidden anger at his limitations. If he could walk, would he be upstairs right now, facing down his enemies directly? The question felt important, though she couldn't say why. Around midnight, Marco came to get them. His suit was rumpled, and there was a fresh bruise forming on his jaw, but he was alive and relatively intact. It's over, he said. The Cardellis backed down. For now. Anyone hurt? Jennifer asked immediately, her nurse's instincts kicking in. Minor injuries. Nothing that needs a hospital. Marco's expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Romano wants to see you, Miss Hayes. Jennifer followed him upstairs, her heart pounding. They went to Vincent's office, the same room where he'd given her the choice to stay or leave 3 weeks ago. He sat behind his desk, and Jennifer could see the toll the night had taken on him. He looked exhausted, older somehow, the weight of his responsibilities visible in every line of his face. You can go, Marco, Vincent said quietly. When they were alone, Vincent wheeled out from behind the desk. In the dim lamplight, Jennifer noticed things she hadn't before. His shirt was untucked slightly, there was a small tear in the knee of his pants, and his knuckles were bruised. You were upstairs, Jennifer said slowly, the pieces clicking into place. During the confrontation, you weren't hiding down here. You were there. Vincent met her eyes and she saw the challenge in his gaze, daring her to ask the question they'd both been dancing around for weeks. Your knuckles are bruised? Jennifer continued, moving closer. That doesn't happen from sitting in a wheelchair. And your pants are torn at the knee like you. She trailed off, the full implication hitting her. Like you knelt on something. Or fell. Careful, Jennifer, Vincent said softly. Some questions are dangerous to ask. Is it more dangerous than staying silent? She was standing right in front of him now, close enough to see the rapid pulse at his throat. I'm not stupid, Vincent. I've been watching you for 3 weeks. The inconsistencies, the things that don't add up. I know something isn't right about your condition. And what do you think you know? Jennifer took a breath, committing to the leap. I think the paralysis is a lie. I think you can walk. And I think you've been lying about it for 3 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent stared at her, his expression unreadable, and Jennifer felt her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd said it. The accusation that could get her killed, that could destroy everything. But she couldn't unsee what she'd seen, couldn't unknow what she knew. Slowly, Vincent's hand moved to the armrest of his wheelchair. Jennifer watched, transfixed, as he pushed himself up slightly, testing his weight or maybe testing her. His jaw was tight, his breathing controlled, and Jennifer knew with absolute certainty that she was right. Then, just as suddenly, he settled back down. The walls slammed into place. His expression went cold and empty. You're tired, he said flatly. It's been a stressful night. You're seeing things that aren't there. Vincent, go to bed, Miss Hayes. We'll resume your normal schedule tomorrow. It was a dismissal, clear and final. Jennifer wanted to push, to demand the truth, but something in his expression stopped her. Fear, she realized with a start. He was afraid, not of her, but of what would happen if the truth came out. She left without another word, her mind reeling. Back in her room, she paced for hours, trying to process what she'd discovered. Vincent Romano wasn't paralyzed. The wheelchair, the helplessness, the entire persona he'd maintained for 3 years, it was all an elaborate deception. But why? What could possibly be worth maintaining such an extensive lie? Jennifer stood at her window, staring out at the dark forest beyond the mansion's walls. Somewhere in this house was a man who'd lost everything he loved and chosen to hide in plain sight. A man who was living a lie so complete that even his own body had become part of the deception. A man she was falling for despite every logical reason not to. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Somewhere between the morning routines and the shared silences, between the moments of vulnerability and the walls of protection, she'd started caring about Vincent Romano, not as a patient, not as an employer, but as a man, complicated, damaged, and desperately alone. And that, Jennifer knew, was the most dangerous thing of all. 4 days later, the tension between Jennifer and Vincent had become almost unbearable. They maintained the routines: morning care, physical therapy, meals. But everything felt different now. Jennifer caught him watching her constantly, his expression guarded, calculating. And she couldn't stop analyzing every movement, every response, looking for more evidence of the truth she'd glimpsed. Marco noticed, of course. He pulled her aside after therapy one morning, his expression grave. "Miss Hayes, whatever you think you saw the other night, whatever theories you're building in your mind, let them go. I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." Marco's voice was quiet but intense. "And you need to understand something. The wheelchair isn't just about Mr. Romano. It's about survival. His survival. Yours. Everyone in this house. Some secrets exist for a reason. What reason could possibly justify?" "The truth can kill," Marco interrupted. "In this world it kills all the time. Mr. Romano's enemies think he's weak, helpless. That's the only thing keeping them from making a move against him. If they knew the truth," he shook his head, "there would be war. People would die. Maybe you, maybe Rosa, maybe everyone he cares about." Jennifer felt cold. So he's trapped himself, imprisoned himself to protect others. He imprisoned himself to survive his guilt, Marco corrected. The protection is just a convenient excuse. But it's still real. So please, Miss Hayes, for everyone's sake, stop looking for answers. But Jennifer couldn't stop. The truth was there, hovering just out of reach, and every day brought new evidence. The way Vincent's hands tightened on his wheelchair arms when he was angry, engaging muscles that shouldn't respond. The slight shift in his posture when he thought no one was watching. The controlled way he moved during transfers, as if he was carefully performing a role rather than struggling with genuine disability. It all pointed to one conclusion. Vincent Romano was living the most elaborate lie Jennifer had ever encountered, and she had no idea what to do about it. The breaking point came on a Wednesday night during one of Vincent's nightmares. Jennifer had been lying awake in her room, unable to sleep, when she heard the sound through the walls, a cry of anguish, muffled but unmistakable. She was out of bed and in the hallway before conscious thought caught up with action. The mansion was dark and silent except for those terrible sounds coming from Vincent's suite. Jennifer knew she shouldn't go to him, knew it crossed every professional boundary, but she couldn't listen to his pain and do nothing. She knocked softly. No answer, just another anguished cry. Jennifer tried the door, unlocked, and slipped inside. The suite was dark except for moonlight streaming through the windows. Vincent lay in his bed, sheets tangled around him, his body rigid with nightmare. In the pale light, Jennifer could see sweat glistening on his skin, the muscles of his arms corded with tension. "Vincent," she said softly, approaching the bed. "Vincent? Wake up." He thrashed suddenly, his hand shooting out and catching her wrist with startling strength and speed. Jennifer gasped as he pulled her down, his eyes opening but unseeing, still trapped in whatever horror filled his dreams. "Sophia," he choked out. "Sophia, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." "Vincent, it's Jennifer. You're having a nightmare, you're safe." His grip on her wrist tightened painfully, and then his legs moved. Not the involuntary spasm of a paraplegic, but a deliberate, controlled movement. His knee bent, his foot pressed against the mattress, his whole body shifting in a way that was impossible for someone with a complete spinal injury. Jennifer froze, staring at the proof she'd been seeking for weeks, and Vincent, still caught between sleep and waking, seemed to realize what he'd done. His eyes focused on her face, wide and panicked, and for a moment they stared at each other in mutual shock. Then he released her wrist and pulled back, his breathing ragged. "Jennifer, you can walk," she whispered. "You've been lying this entire time." Vincent sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair. In the moonlight he looked defeated, trapped, like a man who'd been caught in a lie so big there was no way to explain it away. "Yes," he said finally. The single word hung in the air between them, heavy with 3 years of deception. "I can walk. I could always walk. The paralysis. It's all been a lie." Jennifer took a step back, her mind reeling. Hearing him admit it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "Why?" she asked, and her voice cracked on the word. "Why would you do this? Why would you trap yourself this way?" Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he swung his legs over the side of the bed. Both legs, moving with the controlled strength of someone who'd never lost the ability. He stood, and Jennifer watched in amazement and horror as Vincent Romano rose to his full height for the first time since she'd met him. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with the bearing of a man accustomed to command. Without the wheelchair, without the vulnerability it implied, he was intimidating in a way she hadn't fully appreciated before. Powerful, dangerous, real. "The night of the accident," Vincent said quietly, staring out the window rather than at her. "I survived with minor injuries. Bruised ribs, concussion, nothing permanent. But Sophia and our daughter, they were gone, and I realized something in that hospital bed, surrounded by my enemies pretending to offer condolences." He turned to face her, and Jennifer saw raw pain in his eyes. "They were glad. My enemies were glad the accident hadn't killed me because a dead Vincent Romano becomes a martyr. But a broken Vincent Romano trapped in a wheelchair unable to fight back, that's a Romano they could work with, control, eventually eliminate. So you gave them what they expected," Jennifer said slowly, understanding dawning. "You became the broken man they wanted to see." "I became a ghost," Vincent corrected. "I let them think I was helpless while I rebuilt my organization from the shadows. Every family that thought I was weak, every enemy that thought they could make a move, they revealed themselves, and I eliminated them, one by one, for 3 years. But that's not the only reason," Jennifer said, seeing deeper. "You're punishing yourself. You think you deserve this prison." Vincent's expression hardened. "I do deserve it. Sophia died because of me. My daughter died because I brought violence into our lives. Every day I wake up and they're still gone and I'm still here." "The wheelchair isn't just strategy, Jennifer, it's penance. It's torture," Jennifer countered, anger flaring in her chest. "You're torturing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. An accident." "It wasn't an accident." Vincent's voice rose, harsh and raw. "It was an assassination attempt. One of my enemies paid that driver to run the light. They wanted me dead and Sophia paid the price. So don't tell me it wasn't my fault. Don't tell me I don't deserve every second of this guilt." Jennifer moved closer, drawn by the anguish in his voice despite every instinct telling her to back away. "You've suffered enough, Vincent. 3 years in a wheelchair, lying to everyone, cutting yourself off from any chance at healing or moving forward. When does the punishment end? When have you paid enough for surviving?" "Never," he said simply. "There is no enough. There's just existing, waiting, going through the motions until something finally ends it. That's not living. That's dying slowly." "Good." Vincent's voice was barely a whisper. "That's exactly what I deserve." Jennifer felt something crack open in her chest. She'd spent 3 weeks watching this man, caring for him, slowly peeling back the layers of his armor. And now, seeing him standing before her, she understood the full tragedy of his situation. He'd trapped himself so completely that he couldn't see any way out. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now that I know the truth?" Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled again, the emotion locked down tight. "Now you have a choice. You can leave, and I'll pay you enough money to ensure your mother's treatment for the next year. You'll sign an agreement never to speak of what you've learned here, and we'll both move on with our lives. And if I stay? If you stay, you become complicit in the lie. You help me maintain the deception. And you accept that everything about me, about this house, about the life I lead, it's built on foundations of violence and death." He met her eyes. "I won't blame you for leaving, Jennifer. In fact, I'd respect you more for it. Running from this darkness is the smart choice, the right choice." Jennifer thought about her mother, about the money, about the safe life she could return to if she walked away. She thought about the man standing before her, so powerful yet so broken, so desperate to punish himself that he'd created an elaborate prison and locked himself inside. And she thought about the moments of real connection they'd shared, the glimpses of humanity beneath the cold exterior, the way her heart raced when his fingers had curled around hers at breakfast. "I'm staying," she said. Vincent's eyes widened slightly. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. I understand perfectly. You're a man living a lie, trapped by guilt and grief, who's forgotten that he deserves to be free. And Jennifer took a breath. I think maybe I can help you remember. Not because you pay me, not because I pity you, but because somewhere in the past 3 weeks I started caring about what happens to you, and I'm not ready to walk away from that. For a long moment, Vincent just stared at her. Then, with a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob, he turned away. You're a fool, he said roughly. A beautiful, stubborn, impossible fool. Probably, Jennifer agreed. But I'm your fool, at least for now. She left him standing there in the moonlight, returned to her room with her heart pounding and her hands shaking. Behind his door, Vincent Romano stood in the darkness, staring at his wheelchair, the symbol of his lies, his guilt, his self-imposed exile from life. And for the first time in 3 years, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, there might be a way out of the prison he'd built. But that wondering was dangerous. Hope was dangerous. Because in his world, the moment you started hoping for something better was the moment everything fell apart. Jennifer lay in her bed, unable to sleep, knowing that everything had changed. She'd crossed a line tonight that couldn't be uncrossed. She knew Vincent's deepest secret, and in knowing it, she'd become part of it. Tomorrow they'd go back to the routine. He'd sit in his wheelchair, and she'd pretend she hadn't seen him stand. They'd perform their elaborate dance of deception for the world. But between them, in the quiet moments when no one else was watching, the truth would hang in the air like an unspoken promise, or a threat. Jennifer didn't know which yet. She only knew that Vincent Romano had become more than a patient, more than an employer. He'd become someone she couldn't walk away from, even knowing the darkness that surrounded him, even knowing that staying might destroy them both. The fragile peace between Jennifer and Vincent lasted exactly 12 days. 12 days of carefully maintained routines. 12 days of Vincent in his wheelchair during the day, while Jennifer tried to forget the image of him standing tall in the moonlight. 12 days of unspoken tension building between them like a storm ready to break. It shattered on a Friday night. Jennifer couldn't sleep. The mansion felt different somehow, the air heavy with anticipation, like the moment before lightning strikes. She rose from bed and moved to her window, looking out over the darkened grounds. That's when she saw him. Vincent Romano, walking across the moonlit garden with the fluid grace of a predator. No wheelchair, no pretense of disability. Just a man moving with lethal purpose toward the west wing of the mansion. Jennifer's heart hammered. She knew she should look away, return to bed, pretend she'd seen nothing. Instead, she found herself pulling on her robe and slipping into the hallway. She followed at a distance, her bare feet silent on the cold marble floors. Vincent moved through the forbidden corridors with the confidence of someone who knew every shadow, every corner. Jennifer stayed back, barely breathing, watching as he entered a room she'd never been permitted to approach. Through a crack in the door, she glimpsed what lay inside. Monitors displaying surveillance footage, weapons mounted on walls, maps marked with territories and symbols she didn't understand. This wasn't just an office. It was a command center, the heart of Vincent's criminal empire. And there, surrounded by 3 men in dark suits, stood Vincent Romano, tall, commanding, every inch the powerful Mafia boss he truly was. No vulnerability, no weakness, just pure, controlled danger. The Castellano family is making moves, one man said. They know something. I think we have a leak. Vincent's expression was ice cold. Then we find the leak and eliminate it. No one threatens this family. No one. Jennifer's breath caught. This was the real Vincent. Not the broken man she cared for, not the grieving husband haunted by nightmares, but the ruthless leader who'd survived 3 years of deception through sheer will and violence. She should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, she felt her heart break for him, for the prison he'd built, for the man he'd become, for the impossibility of their situation. A floorboard creaked beneath her foot. Every head in the room snapped toward the door. Vincent's eyes met hers through the crack, and Jennifer saw shock, then fury, then something that looked almost like despair flash across his face. Everyone out, he commanded quietly. Now. The men filed past Jennifer without looking at her, their expressions carefully blank. When they were gone, Vincent stood in the doorway, still on his feet, no longer bothering to hide the truth. How long have you been standing there? His voice was dangerously soft. Long enough? Jennifer forced herself to meet his eyes. Long enough to see everything. Then you understand now. What I am. What this life really is. Vincent moved closer, and Jennifer saw the war playing across his face. Anger at being discovered, fear of what she might do with the knowledge, and something else. Something that looked like relief that the charade was finally over. I understand that you've been lying to me since the moment we met, Jennifer said, anger rising in her chest. Every vulnerable moment, every confession, every time I thought I was seeing the real you. It was all just another performance. Not all of it. Vincent's voice roughened. Jennifer, you have to understand. Understand what? That you're a criminal? That you've been manipulating me? That everything between us has been built on lies? Her voice cracked. I stayed, Vincent. When I could have run, I stayed. Because I thought... She trailed off, unable to finish. Because you thought what? Vincent demanded, moving closer still. Because you thought I was some wounded soul you could save? Because you developed feelings for a man you thought was helpless? Because I developed feelings for you, Jennifer admitted, the words torn from somewhere deep inside. The real you, or who I thought was real, but I don't even know anymore. Was any of it true? The nightmares, the grief, or was that just another lie to make me trust you? The grief is real, Vincent said harshly. The guilt is real. Everything I feel for... He stopped abruptly, seeming to catch himself. Jennifer, the chair is strategy, but the pain is real. All of it. And your feelings for me? Jennifer whispered. Are those real too? Vincent stared at her, something desperate in his eyes. They're the most dangerous thing I've ever felt. Because caring about you, letting you get close, it makes me weak. Weak men in my world don't survive, they get people killed. Like Sophia, Jennifer said quietly. Vincent flinched as if she'd struck him. Yes, like Sophia. So this, whatever this is between us, it ends now. Tonight, you'll leave tomorrow with enough money to take care of your mother. And you'll forget everything you've seen here. I can't forget this. I can't forget you. You have to. Vincent's voice was raw. Because if you stay, if my enemies discover what you mean to me, they'll use you. They'll hurt you to hurt me, and I can't... His composure cracked. I can't lose someone else. I can't bury another person, He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. But Jennifer heard the unspoken words anyway. The moment stretched between them. Charged, desperate, impossible. Jennifer saw the truth written in Vincent's eyes. He cared for her, maybe even loved her, and it terrified him more than any enemy ever could. Before either could speak again, Marco burst into the room, his face pale. Sir, we have a problem. The Castellanos, they're here. Now. At least 20 men surrounding the property. He glanced at Jennifer, his expression grim. And they're asking specifically about the nurse. By name. Jennifer felt ice flood her veins. How do they know about me? Vincent's expression turned to stone. Because someone told them. Someone who knew exactly how to hurt me. He wheeled toward Marco, or started to, then seemed to remember he was standing. The lie had fallen away so completely he'd forgotten to maintain it. Get her to the safe room, Vincent ordered. Keep her there no matter what happens. Vincent, Jennifer began. This is my fault, he cut her off. I let you get close, I let myself care. And now you're in danger because of it. His eyes met hers and Jennifer saw anguish there. I'm sorry, Jennifer. For the lies, for the danger, for all of it. But I will keep you safe, even if it costs me everything. Before she could respond, the sound of breaking glass erupted from somewhere in the mansion. Shouting. Gunfire. The war Vincent had been avoiding for 3 years had finally come to his door, and Jennifer was trapped in the middle of it. Jennifer's hands trembled as she helped Vincent through his morning routine. They'd maintained the charade perfectly, him in the wheelchair, her playing the devoted nurse. But the tension between them had grown unbearable. Every touch felt electric. Every glance held secrets. You're distracted today, Vincent observed as she adjusted his shirt. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar, Jennifer. His voice was soft, almost tender. One of the things I've come to admire about you. She met his eyes, finding warmth there that hadn't existed weeks ago. Something had shifted between them. The secret they shared had created an intimacy more profound than any physical touch. Vincent, how long can this continue? Living this lie? As long as it needs to. But his jaw tightened. My enemies are circling again. The Martinelli family thinks I'm vulnerable. They're planning something. Fear clutched Jennifer's heart. What kind of something? Before he could answer, Marco burst through the door, his face pale. Sir, we have a problem. Someone's been talking. The Martinellis know. Vincent's expression turned to stone. Know what? About the wheelchair. They have photographs, you walking in your private suite. The blood drained from Jennifer's face. How is that possible? Someone installed cameras, Marco said grimly. Someone on the inside betrayed us. Vincent's hands gripped his wheelchair arms, knuckles white with fury. When? They're demanding a meeting tonight. They say if you don't come, if you don't prove you're really paralyzed, they're going public with the evidence. Jennifer watched Vincent's carefully constructed world crumble in real time. 3 years of deception, destroyed in an instant. Then I go, Vincent said quietly, and I end this, one way or another. Vincent, no, Jennifer started. He looked at her, and she saw something new in his eyes. Resignation. Some lies can't last forever, Jennifer. Maybe it's time to face the truth. The mansion felt different in the morning light, emptier, or maybe Jennifer had simply changed. Vincent sat in his office, not in the wheelchair, but in a regular chair. The deception was over. The Martinelli meeting had ended with a fragile truce and new terms. His enemies knew the truth, but Vincent had negotiated from a position of strength, proving he was still formidable even without the element of surprise. You should go, Vincent said without looking at her, before this life consumes you completely. Jennifer stood in the doorway, her bag already packed. Her mother's treatment was secured for the next year. She had enough money to start over. Every logical reason to leave. Is that what you want? She asked quietly. Vincent finally turned to face her. What I want doesn't matter. You deserve better than this world, better than me. Don't I get to decide what I deserve? Jennifer, I'm not leaving because you tell me to, she interrupted. I'm leaving because I need time to figure out who I am outside of this place. What I want. What I'm willing to accept. She paused. But I'm not leaving forever. Something flickered in Vincent's eyes. Hope. Carefully guarded. You're coming back? Maybe. If you're still here. If you've started learning to forgive yourself. Jennifer moved closer. You're not trapped anymore, Vincent. The wheelchair is gone. The lie is over. Now you have to decide. Are you going to keep punishing yourself? Or are you going to start living again? Vincent stood, crossing to her. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Two people who'd found something unexpected in the darkness. I don't know how to live without the guilt, he admitted. Then learn. And when you figure it out, maybe I'll come back and we can figure out the rest together. Jennifer turned to leave, but Vincent caught her hand. Thank you, he said quietly, for seeing me, the real me. Thank you for letting me. 6 months later, Jennifer received a text from an unknown number. I'm learning. Slowly. Are you? She smiled, typing back. Yes. I'll see you soon. Some endings were just new beginnings in disguise.